Hello, welcome to the Up Your Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Lizette Zuno, and today our podcast episode is going to be another fun episode that we're starting from our series called Enhance and Develop Your Confidence from the Up Your Confidence podcast. So I'm excited to have our guest today, and I'm going to go ahead and read her bio. Thank you for joining, Andrea. And Andrea is an optimist expert, professional encourager, and a coach. She coaches high-performing, mission-minded women to grow, lead, and succeed using the six tenets of intentional optimism, which are optimistic, present, energetic, courageous, wise, and intentional. And we're going to talk about this in this episode. Her mission is really to empower women to find community and freedom to be as big as they are, to create through coaching, speaking, and podcasting. I love her story because she spent her childhood and adolescence battling weight gain and ultimately bulimia and depression. As an adult, she picked up a couple of tools to help manage that, including gastric bypass surgery and a few rounds of antidepressant and counseling. In 2008, she was diagnosed with an early menopause at age 37, which then placed her on a road to a private adoption. She also, in 2017, had her mother finish her 15-year fight with breast cancer, and the reflective nature of grief allowed her to purposely walk through all the pain and anxiety and emerge as if from a crumble holding the gem of intentional optimism. Never underestimate the power that you have. She's also a certified John Maxwell Team and international leadership coaching organization, and is also a personal growth plan. She has also a personal growth plan called the Intentional Optimism, which is a comprehensive approach to personal growth and leadership through training, viewed through the lens of hope. I'm so excited to have you here today, Andrea. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm so glad to see you, my friend.
Yes, I always like to talk about how I meet people. I know that we've been planning to have this moment, and share this space since spring, and we finally made it. I know we all enjoy our summer. We were talking about our summer, but we met almost a year ago, right? I would say
Over a year
yeah,
ago,
over a
right?
year ago. I think it
Mm-hmm.
was in spring 2020, the
Correct.
beginning of the pandemic, because I was trying to remember when we met, and it has been fun. We learned from each other, and I was on your podcast a couple of months ago, and it
Mm-hmm.
was phenomenal. So I hope this is gonna turn out to be a phenomenal episode as well. I'm pretty sure. So
Well, I tell you, you have a phenomenal leadership story, and so that made it a great podcast.
thank you. So today is about you, and I wanted to talk with you about this topic because I felt like you were well suited based on your, background, experience, and also life story. And we share a couple of things, together. The faith part, the faith,
Mm-hmm.
our strong faith, and also the journey that your mom had with breast cancer. We
Mm-hmm.
share that, and also even I can say the weight also, because I mean that's just real for me and for a lot of us. So there's a lot of things that we can learn from you today. And before we start getting to the topic about knowing that self, what is intentional optimism and where did that came from? How did you get to like start talking about intentional optimism?
Well, in my bio, I say I reflected after the death of my mother, and but the reality is, it kind of started 20 years ago when I did my first like personal growth journey. As I started that, but when you lose someone and you go into a grief cycle, it really, if you're willing to do the work, it's a really great opportunity to really kind of look inside and say, who am I, and how do I want to respond to this, and what is it? And one of the things that I did was, for me, it was a little bit like, you said, like a crucible experience where it goes into a really hot and hard process. over many years to become that beautiful stone. That's kind of what I went through. It was about 2 years worth of just really, as my dad would call it, belly button staring, just really looking inside. And as a woman of faith, and as a very strong woman, I really had a hard time with reconciling those things together. And my mom loved Proverbs chapter 31. And she was a very strong woman that I don't think got enough, attention for being strong, right? She was one of those Southern women.
So we were talking about what is intentional optimism, right? And then you gave us a little bit insight, but I want to shift now and talk a little bit about the 6th tenet, because I read that you have some 6 tenet. How did you get to find out what is the 6th tenet? Where are they coming from? And what precisely push you to pick those one? Because I do have my favorite.
Oh, good, because I'd love to hear it. So for me, looking at Proverbs chapter 31, my dad bought my mother this beautiful, when she retired, he bought her this beautiful calligraphy, hand done by a rabbi in Jerusalem. And I looked at that and I thought, why is Proverbs 31 such a big deal? And, I said I started a personal growth journey over 20 years ago, actually probably 30 years ago. And as I started kind of writing down what's important to me, what do I believe, what do I see here? When I looked at this woman in Proverbs chapter 31, she was amazing. She was not this demure Southern lady who says y'all and makes sure the potato salad is good. She might have 10 kids, but it's not just because she's a homeschooler and she doesn't can all her food. And, she's a businesswoman. She kicks it, she buys land and she plants a vineyard and she sells it, and she is a shipping magnate, and her husband's name is well known in the square because of her. And I thought, this is a totally different take. And as I have pages and pages of things I wrote down. What do I believe? Why is this important? And I never set out to have a personal growth plan or a personal growth philosophy. I never set out to have 6 tenets, but what I realized was I have these things that are important to me. And in order to live in a way that for me as a woman of faith, glorifies God. And like as Bach said, it's like everything for the glory of God and the good of others, right? So anything that I want to do needs to fall within these tenets. And the first one is optimistic. And that is made up of hope and being confident, which totally plays into your podcast and your message, and being proactive. And the second is present. And that has to do with wonder and being generous and being kind and open. The third is energetic. And in that we see like she's industrious, right? It's like she's constantly got a business thing going. She's creative. She knows her money. But she laughs at the future, right? She laughs at the days to come. But she's life focused. So she's always opening her hands to the poor. And she's making sure that everybody has what they need. Back in biblical times, purple cloth was a big deal. And she made sure that her family and her servants and everybody was dressed in purple cloth. But the fourth one is courageous. And what we see there is in leadership that in order to lead, that you have to have courage. And she has plenty of it. She's adventurous. She's willing to take on all kinds of new things, but she's resilient, right? She looks at the future and she says, no matter what we've experienced, we can actually get up and go again. The fifth tenet is wise. And that's one of the things that the Proverbs 31 woman is known for. She understands things. She's a realist. I was interviewed with another podcast a week ago, and they said, one of the things we hear from you is that you're not a sunny optimist, you're a realistic optimist. And I'm like, well, of course, right? You have to have both sides of it. And when you see all the sides, then you know whether or not what you're doing is optimistic, or you get to choose. But she's wise with the words that she says. They literally sit around. Her kids rise up and call her blessed. But she actually, people want to hear what she has to say. So her words are worthy of listening to, and she's earned the respect of everyone around her by giving respect. And then the last of the 6 tenets is intentional, which means we have a purpose, a why for what we do. We have a plan. We don't just go out willy-nilly. And we grow, right? That's part of being intentional, is actually growing. So that's my 6. And I honestly, it's like 6 with 3 under each, but having those kind of helps me say, how do I want to live? This is how I want to live. And I just want to share it with everybody else to say, this is a really easy way to say, how am I making an impact? So that's how I teach.
Nice. I love it. I completely love it. And I have to tell you, my favorite one, I mean, I love all of them, but I wanted to like pick my top 3. My top 3 is present, being present, because I believe being present, we get so busy in this day and life that, you know, being present is super important. Courageous, it's definitely there for me. You know, I love everything you say about courageous. I was like, yeah, that's me. And intentional, you know, and I mean, that's what drew me to you, right? Like the intentional, being optimistic, yes, but you have to have a purpose behind it. You have to be optimistic, and you have to be resilient, you know, because I mean, you have so many, the fact that you say, and I love that it's rooted. I didn't know until now that this whole intentional optimism and all the 6 tenets are rooted from Proverb 31, because I love Proverb 31. And when I used to go to, we have a ladies group at church, and we talk a lot. You know, we had like a whole series a couple of years ago on Proverb 31 women. So I know it in and out. And it's when you get to it, you really feel like, yes, it kind of like bring your shoulder up, like, yes, I want to be that woman, you know, I am that woman, you know, and I want to strive and be that woman and leave the legacy of being that kind of woman. So I really love that. I didn't even know that was the root of it. So it's even more exciting to hear that. And I love that we're talking about that, because it kind of like come back to, you know thyself, because for me it's always like, know your identity, but know where you rooted, you know. And for us women, this is like a perfect key of where you can root yourself, you know, root yourself into being that woman of Proverbs 31, you know. This is like a plan. I'm a technical person, so I'm always using technical knowledge, you know. It's like there's a framework for you of the kind of woman you want to be, you know, of how you want to root yourself, because we know things will happen. You know, you have to be resilient, you have to be courageous, you know, you have to be present, you have to be kind, you have to be, because I was looking at energetic when you were talking, and I was like, that is so you, Andrea, you know. That is like you. And I was like, am I energetic? I don't know. Sometimes I don't have all the energy that I need, but I think I have energy, purposeful energy, you know. My drive through everything that I want to go, my goals, I drive through them with high impact energy. So I think that also applies to me, but this is so good to learn that this is where it's rooted.
Yeah. Well, and I like to call it a scaffolding too, right? I mean, it's
nice.
It's because I love architecture, right? So it's a scaffolding for people who may not be in the tech world, to be able to say, this is what I build my life around, right? These are the things that we start with, and this is how we move forward.
Right. I love it. Totally. I love it. And so now let's shift gear, because this is a good place to start and shift gear to another part of things that you do is DISC. I know that you are a DISC expert. And when I heard it, you know, I have my little DISC thing here. This expert. I took DISC about, I don't know, 15, 17 years ago, the first time, you know, and it blew my mind to just take a test that give you, you know, all the different aspects of what your personality is. So for those of us listening that don't know what is DISC, and what got you attracted to it, and how do you use it? So 3 questions in one.
Where do I start? So I did mention that I started personal growth over 30 years ago, right? And I think that I love the fact that I'm in this Know Yourself series, because the very first personality type indicator test I ever took was the Myers-Briggs. And I am the black sheep of my family, right? There's only 4 of us, and I grew up on the mission field. So I had a big community family, but with just me and my mom and my dad and my sister, I was the odd girl out. I was the one who had the personality that just was like, Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other, And so when I took the Myers-Briggs and I found out what I was, and then I noticed the book that goes with that is called Please Understand Me. That was it. I was like, oh my goodness, somebody gets me, right? And so for you to say the disc did that for you, and for those of you who don't have any background with disc, it's literally an acronym. It's a 4-quadrant. Like, she held up a sign, and you can take it from a lot of different people. I am a International John Maxwell Team speaker, trainer, and coach. And part of that trainer is I am a disc trainer certified. So from the John Maxwell team, everything we do is leadership and communication oriented. And DISC itself it's the 4 quadrants of D, which is dominant. And that is your like 3% of the whole entire population of the world, right? And these are your bottom line thinkers. They're direct. They're pretty strong. And as I was going to say, are you a D? But that's your
strong D.
Yeah. And you know what? The good thing is there's only about 3% of the world, right? Because you couldn't have everybody that would be a strong D. The second one, as you go around clockwise, is I, which is influencer. These are your communicators. I'm an I. I am a big I am a really high, like off the charts I. And, I kind of like to say I'm Tigger, from Winnie the Pooh. And then as you keep going, and I's are only about 8%, I think, of the population, or maybe it's 14. The next one around is the S, which is the steady. These are the backbone of your company, the backbone of your team. These are your real team players. And when we talk about building teams, one of the reasons why that works is because S's, steadies, are about 70% of the population. So there's a reason why we like to build teams, right? But then the fourth one, as you keep going around, is the C, which is the compliant or the creative, depending on which one you look at. These are the people who focus on the facts. These are the people who are analytical and detail oriented. Most people who are in accounting fields are C's. I have, when I shared earlier, or I shared before we started recording, that I am now fully self-employed, but I spent over 20 years in the university medical system. And I had my last job, I actually had 12 people that I supervised. And when you're talking about people who are in clinical research and research administration and that kind of thing, they're very C oriented, because they're the ones who want all those details right. You want all of the clinical research to be very detail oriented. So I'm curious, Lizette, you said you're a high D. Do you know all of your other letters? Because we're all the letters on a spectrum.
Yes. So I'm a high D, mid C, and a little bit of S. I'm definitely not, there's no I in me at all. Like, I want to crawl in a bed. I don't want to talk.
So not everybody is like, depending on which actual one you take, because DISC is you're going to be the same letters and whatever one you take. But for the John Maxwell Team one, it's like a midline, and you're like above or below the midline. Mm-hmm. And I am above the midline on I, like all the way at the top. And my next one is C. So you and I both have that C as number 2 in common. So I'm like all over the place, influencer, and then I need to do the details. So I always felt like I was fighting with myself. And then my third one is D. So my S is like all the way at the bottom. I am not. I like to joke and say I'm the definition of a non-team player. I am.
That is funny.
Yeah. And so, but what the DISC shows you is how you communicate. It shows you how you listen to other people and how you communicate with other people. So I have a cheat sheet it's like a freebie that I can give you that's part of the John Maxwell Team 30 page report that you get when you take it. Because I do offer that as a service, and I actually talk with people and walk them through it and help them understand how they communicate and how others in their lives communicate. Because even though you have C as your number 2, they like all the details, but I'll bet when you're really moving, you just want the bottom line, right? It's like, tell me, I don't need all the details. You made the decision. Let's go. What's the bottom line, right?
Let's get to the point.
Let's get to the point, right? And I'm an I, so I go all the way around the world before I get to the point. So, but when you know who you're communicating with, and when you start to recognize those pieces of the different aspects of each type, then it's much easier to, like, my boss was an SD, right? So it's like, instead of giving him all the details, I'd give him an email and say, this is my conclusion. If you'd like the details, they follow. And it makes a difference when you can speak to people in what we would call their language, because getting to the point is good for you. But for me, I love a good story. Right? Tell me a good story. That's what, on my podcast, what do I say? Tell me the story, right?
Right.
So
this is great. This is great. At the end, it's good. So for all of you that are listening, Andrea is a certified trainer in DISC, and I will totally ask you to reach out to her. We're going to have her information at the end, but I wanted to pause and talk about that. And when I learned, and I agree with you, it does not change much. You know, I've taken it the first time, and then I took it again, maybe 10 years later, and then maybe 5 years ago, and it remained, I mean, like, I'm on top of the chart, D, like, like extreme, the highest level of D, that's me. And my I is like below, very low, almost non-existent. And then the S and the C are sharing in between. And the funny thing is, I like to do this actually whenever I have a team. I have and there's some resource that I'm going to share as part of this series of, you talk about the Myers-Briggs, that's also in the toolbox. And I'm going to ask you again if you have other tools, because what I'm doing with this series and the podcast is really providing people practical things that they can learn and use to really know about themselves. You know, it's like, not only ground yourself in Proverb 13 that we say, but as a human being, how do you communicate? How do you show up in front of other people? And how do you communicate with people? Because I know that it has helped me a lot when I'm working with my team member. You know, I know the eyes in my team, and I just know, okay, I'm Tuesday and Thursday, I'm talking with my eyes, you know, because that's the day that I have energy to. I'm not talking to an eye person on a Friday afternoon unless I'm doing a podcast.
And yet here we are.
We're doing a podcast, and I enjoy talking to you, so that's different. But I would not have like a one-on-one with an IT member on a Friday, because it will be like long. But it really helped me in my leadership to really learn about people. So wherever I go, I make sure that my teams, we know each other, and we even play the game, and everybody always gets mine. Like, 1 week in, everybody gets mine. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm a strong D, and there's nothing I can do about it. So
Well, and I even had, like I said, I have this free cheat sheet that we'll easily make available. And if you're in my Facebook group, it's part of the extras. You can just download it. But it's just like a crosswalk. Like if you see somebody with these characteristics, then they're probably a D, and this is how you should talk to them. If you see someone who's got these and they're an I, that kind of thing. But with that in mind, a local business that I frequent, they actually downloaded that, and because they were having communication issues. It's just a retail shop. And so they stuck it in their break room, and then they made copies just of the cheat sheet, and they started like saying who's what, and they started figuring it out, fixed their communication problems. I mean, it just is amazing. So I use the DISC. But the other thing that I think, if you want my other tool that I think is super important, is you've got to know what your core values are. I am a core values based coach. For me, I know that my top value is community, and then next to that is authenticity, and then the third one is freedom, and they just build on each other. But I have an actual course. It's on Marco Polo channels. It's a micro course. It's a little, you just walk through videos with worksheets, and that's all included in the information that I gave you. And we can make sure that that's in the show notes. But it's just a brief easy course that you can walk through. You can take 30 days or you can do it in 3. But when you know what your core values are, it gives you the guardrails for how you make decisions in your life. It gives you the understanding of why things are important to you. And if you know how you communicate and what your values are, then you can set your boundaries. And, to me, those are just all interchangeable, and you can't have one without the other. So I think that's a really important tool to have as well.
Okay, so the core value is, if I understand, it's a individual paced course that you can take. So it's not
Sure.
like, okay, so you can take it on your at your own pace.
Yeah. And it's on, I don't know if you've ever heard of Marco Polo or Marco
Yes,
Polo
I heard
channels.
it through you.
Okay. So Marco Polo is a great little video texting type app. It's a way to keep in touch with people. But what they did was coaches started saying, I'd like to use this in my coaching. And so they created what we call channels. And so when you sign up for a course, it's kind of an evergreen course of mine. You then
Nice.
get into the channel, and then you can watch videos of me. You can actually record a question to me, and I can record an answer back to you.
That's
I
awesome.
love face-to-face communication, but I can't do that all over the world.
Right.
And I do have clients all over the world, and I can't, I have a Marco Polo channel that we'll talk about later, where one of the ladies that is in there, she's in Great Britain, and we talk on a daily basis, and I'm in
Awesome.
Virginia. So, it means that we can do that, but it also means that you can hear my voice, and you can ask me a question and I can respond back. And it just makes it really simple, and it's all done on your phone. So it's
Yes.
asynchronous, it's at your schedule, it's your time, and it's just a little micro course. So it's very accessible to just about anybody, and it makes this process of figuring out what my core values are, which is very daunting to some people. It
Yes.
makes it much more simple and easier to tackle.
That's good, because that's an exercise that I had to go through a couple of years ago for my nonprofit.
Yep.
When I started my nonprofit, like, what is our core value and why are we doing this? And I also did it 2 years ago for my IT consultancy. And that core value was super easy for me because I did the exercise and I know how I wanted to serve my client. So it's out there on the website. So I would definitely recommend it, and we'll make sure that all the information are in the show note. So another question that I had around this is, how have you seen your client use DISC to improve their communication or even improve their life, in general? Do you have any testimony how
I
that have been
do. And I
useful?
have the one that is the most impressive to me is a bank manager, and she wanted to take it. So we sat down and we did it. Actually, I have 2, but this one, she's a high S, and S's don't like conflict. They like having everything being supportive. They're team oriented. But she had, like, as a local bank manager, her bosses tended to be more the D's and the I's. And so she would go into meetings and not really get to say anything. And she just felt like she's in a small bank branch here in the Charlottesville area, and everybody else is in like the DC area and the Richmond area. And she just felt like she was never being heard. And we sat down and walked through it, and she said, oh my goodness, because at the end of this John Maxwell 30-page part, the last 5 pages of it are all about how you're going to grow personally. And so we were able to put kind of a personal growth plan together for her, and tactics and exercises that she could do. And she figured out that if she would just write down what she wanted, simple, right? You and I are like, well, of course, write down what she wanted and walk into the meeting and say, even if it was a board meeting or a bunch of people in there, a staff meeting, she could say, I want to make sure that these things get addressed. And she would do it. She knew they were D's. And so she could do it bottom line. It's like A, B, C, and D. This is it. This is all I want. And this is why. And the first time she came back and she called me, she said, oh my gosh, I got everything I wanted and I wasn't frustrated. And I'm like, yay, but that is a really good example of work and how it affected her job. And so since then, she's like, now she knows how to stand up for herself because she doesn't feel like it needs to be confrontational. It's just, these are the facts. This is what I need. And I'm going to walk through it so that I make sure we get everything said. On a personal level, I did one recently with a friend, and she was just, she's also a very high S. And the other thing is, perspective wise, we always see things from our own perspective, right? This is very much a topic in intentional optimism, is seeing things from other people's perspectives. But when that's part of DISC as well, when you can start to see things from somebody else's, it's much easier. But when S's are 70% of the population, they just tend to think that everybody should want to be a team player. And she was struggling with a personal relationship with a friend of hers who was a very high I. Well, I check on her. Why doesn't she check on me? And I'm like, she's an I. Look at this. This is who she is. You can't change who she is. And it was like a light bulb moment for her. She said, oh, so I need to just start seeing things like this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't expect, I always said this for years, you wouldn't expect a 3-year-old to act like a senior in high school, right? But I don't want to compare personality types to that. I wouldn't expect a leopard to act like a zebra. I wouldn't, you just wouldn't, because that's who they are. And when we can start celebrating people for who they are, our expectations change. And when our expectations change, then we're no longer disappointed in them because we expect them to be who they are. So I's are talkative and optimistic, and they like to encourage, right? I'm a professional encourager. They're fun. I was on a mastermind call yesterday, and they said, well, how do you keep your coaching engaged? And I'm like, well, I'm fun, of course, and
easy.
That's just, but that's just who we are. And S's don't always understand that. But if they see that's what I can expect out of my friend, it's not that she doesn't care about me. It's just that she's just bubbly, and that, so that was a really big light bulb moment for her to be able to see that in her personal life as well.
And I want to go back and talk about the lady from the bank. I'm pretty sure after that interaction, her confidence grew, because I know, and this is like the genesis of me creating this podcast, is I know that a lot of women in the workplace, sometimes we miss the tools that we need to be able to communicate effectively, but also to reduce the frustration that we have because of lack of confidence. So anything that you can add in your toolbox, to help you with that, it's totally great. And let's shift and talk a little bit about how, I think you already allude to that, but I know also DISC help leaders, right? How have you seen DISC, using the DISC or even the core value, helping in your personal leadership journey?
In my personal leadership journey, like I said, the last job, when I left my job, I was supervising 12 people, administrative assistants, research administrators, clinical research coordinators. I was in university medical setting. And when I looked around, I realized, as a high I just want everybody to like me. And I just want us all to get along and just do your job. But I realized early on in that situation, I was in that position for 7 years. And I realized early on that, number one, they're not all going to like me. And that's okay, because that's not what leaders are there to do. Leaders are not there to be liked. They're there to provide leadership. They're there.
And I love a quote. I love a quote from I think Steve Jobs say, if you want to be liked as a leader, go sell an ice cream. Just want to say that.
Yes. And, I didn't sell ice cream, and I had to tell, people hard things. But here's the thing. Because of the fact that I am an I and a C and a D, I had the opportunity to tell them hard things in a way that was compassionate and generous and kind. And even when I was leaving, as I did the last evaluations for people, one of my employees said, I just want to remind you and tell you how much I appreciated your leadership, that it was this way when you had to do hard things. But I also had to actually hold some people accountable. And I had some high C's that I had to get out of the weeds and help them get, move forward. And so when you understand these things about yourself, and when you see them in others, it makes things a little clearer, so that you have the ability to understand the pitfalls that they might have and how to help them overcome them. So, because I think leadership is a lot more than telling people what to do. Leadership is empowering others, it is encouraging others, and it is giving them the opportunity to grow and to become more. And when you understand them and maybe some of the things as you see the pitfalls that they're falling into, then that gives you the opportunity as the leader to help move them out of those things.
It sounds a lot of fun. And let's talk a little bit about your intent. I think you have a new program from the Intentional Optimism. What is the outcome for those that join the program, and who should be the great candidate for that program?
So my program is called Launch from the Beach, and it doesn't sound like anything other than fun, which, that's what I do. But the whole concept is most of the time I explain intentional optimism as a sailboat. My parents were missionaries. I grew up in Korea, and we would go to the beach. And one of the things we did was we always had a small sailboat. And so I explain the 6 tenets, which I should have done earlier, as like this: the boat, the hull is optimism, and the center board, which helps hold the boat upright, is your presence. And then the third one is energetic, which is your sail, right? Which your sail captures the wind as it blows through. The rigging is courage. Sometimes you got to let things go. Sometimes you got to tighten them up. The rudder or the wheel is wisdom or wise. And then, of course, you have to be intentional to get the thing in the water, and you have to to even sail at all. But we were in this beach that has a really high and low tide, like a really wide tide, and you can carry that boat out there or put it on take it out on a trailer. But if you sit it on the beach, your boat's not going anywhere. But getting it in the water, you either have to wait for the tide to come in, which could take a long time, or you can get a couple of other people and help you get it into the water. And once it's in the water, then the boat can do its thing. So the whole point of Launch from the Beach is helping women to launch their dreams. So some of them are entrepreneurs. Some of them are on weight loss journeys. Some of them are on a journey to make their marriage better. But the point of it is to build community. And I think we all go farther when we go together. So we basically have a monthly rhythm of goal setting and accountability. And we meet once a month on a Zoom call, and we kind of declare our goals, and then we kind of check in with each other to see how are you doing and what did we actually accomplish this month. So the goals are anything from I'm going to run more miles this time, or I am going to get out this contract to the CDC. I mean, it's like everything you could imagine. So it feels like a really wide band. I keep saying it's maybe for entrepreneurs, but I don't think it's just for women entrepreneurs. But it is on Marco Polo channels. So it's asynchronous. If you're busy, if you know what you kind of know what you want, but you just don't have the support system, this is your support system. This is a group of ladies that definitely hold each other up, encourage each other. And it's that same concept I shared in the values course. We get in there, I teach twice a week. So I get in there and I teach on the tenets of intentional optimism, and then apply it to life. We do book reviews and apply those to how we grow. And then we comment back and forth. And when you get 5, 6, 12 ladies commenting on things, then you get their insight. It's a little bit like having asynchronous group coaching. So if you're busy, if you're driven, like I say, mission-minded women, if you have a goal that you want to reach, this is for you. We're ready and welcoming. And this is a kind of community where you can try and fail and start over and try again. And we're always going to support you because we're building it on these 6 tenets of intentional optimism. So the goal is to have a big community where we support each other, and our boats get bigger and bigger as we go out from the harbor. And eventually someday a big schooner is going to come back after they've gone out and done some amazing work. And so we all are excited about where it's going to go. So we would love to have you in there.
Awesome. And one question that I had about it, so it seems like the program is year long. It's asynchronous, so you can join anytime.
It's rolling.
Right? Okay, it's rolling, so you can catch the teaching at any time.
Yeah, the beach is always open, as I say. It's like it's always beach season. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see my logo is a pineapple.
Yes.
I'm a flamingo girl. I'm butterfly oriented because of, it's like these are the things that I cherish. But the beach is my happy place. And,
Yes, me
like,
too.
I can't wait to see the beaches in Benin. We're going to go. But it's always open. You can join at any time.
Right.
You can, and so when you do join, I actually sit down and have a strategy session with you. And we do include DISC in that. So there's the values course is actually included as part of the membership. So it's a membership, and it's just like a monthly, month over month. And I have a 20% off your first 3 months introductory offer. Nice. So that we will definitely share. And so if you want to, you can DM me and I can share more about it. Most people don't understand channels. They don't understand how that asynchronous thing works. But we do start over if the best time to start is at the beginning of the month. But it's just like they say with any personal growth journey or starting a business. The best time to start was a year ago, exactly. But the next best time to start is now. Right?
Totally. So this has been fun. And one of the questions that we like to ask all our guests here on the Up Your Confidence is, what do you do to up your confidence every day? And I always love to hear your answer for that. Different answer all the time.
I loved the way you asked this question. For anybody who's not been on her podcast, she has this fabulous way of asking these questions. And, your tagline is we equip, empower, and elevate. And so you asked me to come up with a sentence that kind of shared how I do that. And for my own personal equipping, I'm in the Bible every morning. If I don't start out, I'm also a Sunday school teacher, so I study my lesson, but then I read She Reads Truth. It's a fabulous community of women who you can do it on the app, that kind of thing. And that's what I do. Or you can have a subscription, but I'm in the Bible every day. That's where I get my main encouragement. And it kind of helps me to remember that that I'm not in this alone and that I'm not responsible for the big picture, that I'm supported, even if it seems like my world is falling apart. So that's how I equip myself. As far as empowering is concerned, I am a lifelong learner. I'm always in a book. And my goal was to read at least one book a month. And right now I've just finished The 4 Agreements. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Yes.
But I'm starting one called A Vibrant Vision, I think I'll share it with you to make sure. I'm getting ready to start it because, like I said, I'm a brand new entrepreneur and I want to make sure that my vision is clear and big. And then as far as elevating, I share my opinion. I'm learning to share, as a Southern woman, it's not okay to share your opinion. But I'm a strong woman and I believe God gave me a voice and I believe he gave me a message and I want to empower other women. So I have my podcast and I speak at conferences and I teach Sunday school. So that's how I elevate my own voice. So I think that really, when we are willing to talk about things and we're willing to say them out loud, it makes a difference. I think that helps to elevate us. So those things actually help my confidence. I also have the I Am app. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
No,
but it's like $20 a year. I didn't mean to pay for it, but I paid for it. I've got it for a year. I might as well use it. And that's an I fall into things, but it's constantly giving me, I can tell it what types of affirmations. It pops up on my phone or on my Apple Watch. And I just read them out loud. Like I'll tell my husband, oh, look at that. I'm a positive thinker. And he goes, yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. And those things are all great tools in helping my confidence.
That's awesome. I love definitely the way you start your day, because I think, having a strong daily habit. And I also love, and I mean, that one that need to be tweetable is the fact that you say you don't have to own the big picture, And as a D, that is something that I struggle with, as a D, you want to really like control the universe sometime, but you have to like release it to a higher power God. So definitely, it does help and easier you entering the day. So that is one that we have in common as well. I always start my day with that as well. And I used to have an app. Now that you talk about the affirmation app, so I might need to go back to that, because I have a bunch of affirmation on my wall in my office that I just read throughout the day. So, but I love the idea of having it show up on your phone and on your watch as well. So I'm gonna plug into that. See, I always learn something. This is like the favorite part of the podcast for me. I mean, because everybody has something different, and it's like one day I'm gonna create like a toolbox of all my guests' confidence habit, because this alone can be a good resource for everybody. But we are coming close to this lovely conversation, and I want to give you a chance to share a little bit how people can find you. I know how to find you, but I want everybody to know how to find you, and then we also leave all those information in the show notes. So where can people find you?
So the easiest place is my website, theintentionaloptimist.com. I am on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I will connect with you, especially if you say, hey, I heard you on Lizette's podcast. I will happily connect with you. I have a Facebook group called The Intentional Optimists. And so we do, Lizette is actually presented in there before on a Facebook Live. So those are the best places. And then, of course, my podcast is Intentional Optimists, Unconventional Leaders, because I think we're all leaders in different ways. And that's kind of one of the things we point out with DISC. And I even have like 2 podcasts on the actual DISC, if you're interested, 2 episodes on that. So those are the best places. Yeah, and that's on all the different platforms and that kind of thing. So
this is awesome. I'm gonna go check out that DISC specific one myself to just revamp my DISC information. But we definitely gonna share all this, because what I'm doing with this new series, and you are the first guest, of the series, and I love, it was not intended, but I wanted the conversation to really be about how do you know ourselves. So we started by talking about, being rooted as a proverb 31 woman, and with all the 6 tenets that you have, and just giving us the boat illustration, because I mean, we know everybody learn differently, right? And I'm a visual learner, so I got it double down when you explain it with the boat. And now I understand when I see all your posts about the boat. Now
you understand why you see the sailboat everywhere.
Yes. Now I'm gonna I just love the sailboat because I want to be on the beach all the time, but I will understand it a little more deeper now. Totally. So this was really valuable. I really thank you. And if you have any last word or message for our listener, please go ahead.
Well, I think it's important to remember that someone's always watching us. We are the role models for every future generation that comes after us. And it is our responsibility to not just take care of ourselves, not just be good leaders for ourselves, but to remember, you talk about your daughter, and you had your daughter on your podcast.
Yes, I did, actually.
So I loved that, actually. And to be able to say, it's not just our kids, because I have a son, right? And so it's not just our kids that we're role models for. We're role models for the women that come behind us, even if they're just 10 days behind us or 10 steps behind us in a specific task. We are the role models for that next generation of whatever we're talking about. So as I reach up to you and you lift me up, I reach back for somebody else. It's like those monkeys in a barrel, right? And I think that that's the thing to remember. This is how we build community, by understanding and believing that we are those role models and that we are responsible to each other, not just to ourselves.
Awesome. I love it. And one of my tenet, if I want to call it that way, is being a lifelong learner, but also a knowledge broker, because I love to share anything, let it be a little pineapple that I found in the store. I love to just share from the little thing to the biggest knowledge possible. And so it really resonates with me when you say that, somebody is always watching us, and for me, everything that I do is to leave a legacy to inspire other people, So that is really the goal of the podcast, is bring awesome guests like you to just help us, equip us, empower us, and elevate us to live our God-given potential. So I really want to thank you, Andrea. This was fun, and I cannot wait for everybody to hear this episode.